Go. So we're good to go. Hello, hello. Here we are. 1580K high. A little bit louder for me.
We're going to be taking calls today.
Is that a little bit better? All right, here we are. 1580K high. Let's talk pot.com. Good. Go.
We have the phone up on.
I got the phone dump. Why isn't it building? There it is.
Hey, thank you, sir.
Thank you. I want a more comfortable chair. Good morning. Welcome to, there we go. Taking care of business.
I like it. I love it. It's taking care of business. Thank you, Chicago. That's my favorite song. That's why we do it here at letstalkpot.com. It is the Cannabis Business Attorney Hour with Mr. Charles T. Howden.
Yes, I am Charles, the Cannabusiness Attorney. I can be reached at charles@thecannabusinessattorney.com. I got with me my partner in crime here, KC.
It is a good day. There's lots of things going on about money, Mr. Howden.
Yeah, today it's all about the Benjamins today. We're going to be talking money, how to get it, where to find it, where you're not going to find it, and what to do with it when you get it.
And how they're going to take it away in taxes.
Yeah, let's start with that one.
You know, the federal government is out there, and marijuana is illegal federally. However, they actually have found a way to tax it because we have to declare our income, even though it is a federally controlled substance. So it's rather odd that while we are considered criminals by the federal government, we actually file our taxes and pay them very kindly every quarter and every annually. So it's quite amazing that when you're working with cannabis in this country, the IRS still expects you to pay your taxes.
Yes, and it is almost comical to me that, that like you said, they're treating us like criminals, but they're more than happy to take your tax money, number one.
They demand it.
And they get really upset if you don't pay them. So anyway, what we're talking about initially, let's get this clear. First of all, it's Revenue Ruling 280E. It was passed in 1982 and really didn't have anything to do with legalized either medical or recreational marijuana. Revenue Ruling 280E, incidentally, we're going to talk about picking accountants at some time in the future. And if your accountant says that they haven't read or don't understand Revenue Ruling 280E, run.
Yeah, this is very interesting because in the marijuana business, I'm a businessman. I'm not a CPA. I'm not an attorney. I'm out there to make money and help create jobs. And what 280E does is it's a rather odd ruling. It taxes you absolutely differently.
Let me read it to you. Everybody thinks it's this big hairy beast. Okay,
it's pretty straightforward.
It's a paragraph long, and it says, no deduction or credit shall be allowed for any amount paid or incurred during the taxable year in carrying on any trade or business if such trade or business or the activities which comprise such trade or business consists of trafficking in controlled substances within the meaning of Schedule 1 and 2 of the Controlled Substances Act, which is prohibited by federal law or the law of any state in which such trade or business is conducted.
Well, to Colorado.
Yeah, in Colorado it's legal. So now we're just talking with the federal part. What 280E has been interpreted to mean over the years is that you can deduct what is known in the accounting circles as cost of goods sold.
The COGS.
Yeah, COGS. And if you are on the gross side, virtually everything is deductible. Rent, utilities, nutrients, employees, etc. Because that all goes into the cost of the goods sold, which is marijuana.
Which is
yes,
deductible.
Yes, and what's weird is that under Revenue Ruling 280E, if you're on the dispensary side, the deductions for rent and utilities and everything and employees are not deductible, but the cost of the marijuana that you sell is deductible. So the only part that's deductible is the illegal
part of the production, actually. It's
Yeah.
such an amazing twist. So let's put that into the Business 101. Basically, you can deduct the cost of your production, but not the cost of your distribution and sales.
Correct,
So
except to the extent that it's the cost of what you bought. So for instance, if I'm a retail store, I'm a storefront, and I pay someone $2,000 a pound for marijuana, I can deduct the $2,000 a pound that I spent on the illegal product, but I can't deduct the cost of the bud tender, the manager, the rent, the utilities, the phone lines, etc., for the retail store.
So as a marijuana business matrix player and a business entrepreneur out there, we have to be very creative and very careful in how we design our buildings, how we operate our storefronts, and where we put our expenses. So when you hear that out there and you're looking to get into this business where you already are and you're suffering from your taxes, you may want to contact us or our fellow CPAs, because there's ways you can work with this to help maximize your deductions and reduce that distribution.
Yeah, and what you're aiming for is you want to try and shove as many legal expenses as you can onto the deductible side. And it
Keyword
takes
legal.
legal. Yeah, you don't want to get involved with tax evasion. That's a whole other crime.
For example,
Yeah.
what actually in practicality, Mr. Travis, we see it is a lot of these operations, they have dual functions. You know, we have marijuana centers that have ancillary businesses like yoga or Tai Chi or art galleries or events in those spaces that are taking up a lot of the room, but that actually dispensing point is a very small area of that store.
Yeah, and that
as far as square footage.
And that's basically what happened in a case in California. It's called the Champs case. You can look it up. It's a tax court case.
Very exciting read.
Yeah. If you have trouble sleeping, read the Champs case, and I can guarantee you it'll put you to sleep quicker than anything. But basically what came out of the Champs case is that you can prorate the rent, utilities, all the rest of that for the retail side of this thing. So that, for instance, if 90% of your building is used for non-dispensing purposes, you could deduct 90% of the rent, but the area where you actually dispense marijuana, you can't deduct that rent. So the Champs case allowed you to make these deductions.
And if you're not aware of that, you can be paying way over your head in taxes. I mean, this is a brutal tax code.
Well,
this is no joke. Imagine running any business out there and you cannot deduct the cost of your sales.
Well, and if you don't structure it right and you get caught in this kind of weird, like, black hole for taxes, you can actually find yourself in 140% tax bracket. And I'm here to tell
Not
you,
advisable.
it's a little tough to run a business if every dime that you spend either goes to expenses or taxes. That doesn't leave a lot left over. And sometimes you come out of pocket. So you have to structure these things carefully. And people are always amazed, you know, that the tax laws are set up this way. And I always remind people that, you know, Al Capone didn't go to jail for shooting people. Al Capone went to jail for not paying taxes on illegal liquor.
That's a very good case in point, and it's very relevant because the federal government does still treat us as unequal and at the federal level illegal, and yet they expect us. Here's the dilemma as a business person, you know, we will not evade taxes. So we have to declare our money. And by declaring our money, we're telling them that we're selling marijuana, and here's the cost of goods sold, and here's my cost as deduction.
Oh, yeah. So if anybody out there thinks that the federal government doesn't know what you're doing, if you're in this industry,
They have my EIN number.
I have bad news for you. They know exactly what you're doing, and they know exactly how much your profits are, and they know exactly who you're selling it to.
And I see that as good news. When in the past, when these businesses had to be run, they were black market businesses. And now because the rules and regulations, I don't like paying my taxes, but it does give me a thrill to have my business in the marijuana game. My business is in the game and be paying for taxes and helping our country and employing people in jobs. So regardless of what they hit us with, the marijuana industry just last year in Colorado, had over $76 million in state revenue. It wasn't 100 million as projected, but 76 is not bad.
No, for a fledgling startup industry, that's almost unheard of. And remember, that's the number of taxes that were paid.
But that was by the state collection, and the state here in Colorado collects them in a very unique way, and it's very similar to those sales. There's a 2.9% sales tax and a 10% marijuana sales tax, and there's also a 15% excise tax on the average market rate of retail marijuana in the recreational side, and it adds up to about a 27 to 30% tax rate. Some go as high as 40% because those local license authorities, that town, that city, that county, can add on additional AKA sin taxes, just like we've seen with alcohol and tobacco.
Or just regular sales taxes, for instance, if 2.9% of the taxes that we pay in Colorado Springs, for example, goes to the state. The total tax bill is 7.9%. So the extra 5% is divided up among the city and the county. So it depends on what city or county you're in. But the thing that you have to hear is that, first of all, that extra 10% tax is only on the retail or recreational side, not on the medical side. And the 15% excise tax is, again, only on the retail side, retail or recreational side, and not the medical side.
That's right.
But the thing that's weird about the 15% excise tax at the wholesale level is it's based upon what the state determines a pound of marijuana should sell for. So, for example, from January 1 of 2015 until June of 2015, the state deems that a pound of marijuana should have been sold at the wholesale level for $2,007 and change. Therefore, your excise tax, which is a little over $300 per pound, is based upon what the state tells you that a pound of marijuana is worth. And they adjust that every 6 months, and they may do it more often at some point in time in the future. So, the taxes are set, they're high, and then if, at the state level, you can make these deductions that are disallowed at the federal level. Now, there has been some proposals to ease that. First of all, Revenue Ruling 280E was never incorporated in the tax code to handle the situation that we've got now. It was passed well before there were any medical marijuana businesses anywhere in any state, and was applied to an out-and-out drug dealer.
Yeah, a lot of our laws in America come out of a response to a reaction, and it doesn't always make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and in this particular instance, I believe this gentleman was trying to deduct the cost of an illegal drug trade, which, God bless him, he
was trying to be above board.
He's
admire him for his honesty.
Well, and you also have to admire him for his chutzpah in doing this. I mean, he said, okay, well, fine. The cost of all of the things that I use in this illegal trade should be deductible. And the government said, yeah, and the government said, well,
maybe not
so fast.
So we are seeing there are efforts to change this. So if you're listening out there and you're in the business and you're not happy with your taxes, there's a lot of ways you can be creative and legally adjust that square footage of that footprint and how you sell your product. So if you're using 10,000 square feet and you have a 300 square foot bud tender zone, you might want to reappropriate some of that 9,700 square feet.
And a lot of it depends on what corporate structures and the use of LLCs and regular corporations that you use that can enhance the deductibility of certain items. And so that's something that you need to take up with an attorney who understands it and an accountant that gets it.
But we do have those contacts.
Yeah.
If you do have questions, you can contact us on our Facebook page. We'll be glad to help.
Yeah. The other thing that came up just, the other night, actually last night, in the middle of the night when I wasn't sleeping, when I should have been, was an article in Forbes magazine, which I don't know whether it just appeared, but they were talking about the possibility of the federal government enacting a 50% tax on gross profits.
That's right.
Well, there's two levels of that story. The first level is that they're talking about taxing marijuana different than any other industry.
Yeah, they tax us on the gross profits instead of the net.
Yeah. The other part of the story is that there's an article in Forbes magazine about this.
In Forbes, hallelujah.
Yeah, and I'm
we
like,
made it big time.
Yeah, and so I'm looking at it going, on the one hand, it's the story itself is got some good content to it, but the fact that it's in the magazine at all, where they're talking about the taxation of marijuana businesses, another step towards
and this is slowly but surely moving this thing out of the shadows from Weed Street to Wall Street. I like to say this has gone from sofas, to Manhattan in money in a matter of years. This is less than a decade. We've seen the revolution across this country, and it's interesting as a business owner when we do those taxes and we structure these businesses, how creative you have to be to stay in the game of marijuana.
Yeah, and not to put yourself in 140% tax bracket.
That's right.
And so the upside of the article is that back in 2013, there was a group of senators that wanted to pass as a piece of legislation that would have taxed marijuana at the rate of 50% of gross profit.
The Marijuana Tax Equity Act of 2013.
Yeah, and the fact that it says equity in there almost made me gag. But the thing is that they were trying to do this a different way for marijuana because it's a Schedule I drug. My question is, and maybe Casey, maybe you can answer this for me, if they're going to make a special tax bracket for marijuana because it's illegal at the federal level, why don't they just make the special tax bracket the same as everybody else's and allow all the deductions?
That's right. And I think that's slowly but surely what's going to happen as we break down those walls of ignorance and fear and overcome that, in response to the Marijuana Tax Equity Act of 2013 and that 50% whopping hit. There was actually Representative Jared Polis from Colorado and Representative Earl Blumenauer, Democrat of Oregon, have actually suggested a phased-in 10% rate reported in the Forbes magazine, up to 25% in 5 years. So that's like an average tobacco sin tax. I mean, we can live with that, I think, and the markets will adjust.
Yeah, I mean, if they would do that, but I guess my argument is that if you're going to do this, why don't you do it right and allow the deductions that every other business in the United States is allowed to take, number one. Number two, you have to remember that Representative Blumenauer from Oregon was the author of the Respect State Laws piece of legislation.
Which, gets him out of our business.
Which basically says that, and it's the most elegant and perfect solution to the problem that I can see. And basically,
the exemption option.
In a nutshell, what it says is that if you are operating in a state that has adequate regulation of the industry, then we're not going to treat marijuana as if it were a Schedule I drug.
And this would have a big effect on banking as well. This is not only your taxes, this is not only your lending, it touches everything where your money goes, how you pay your bills, can you write checks, can you use debit cards, can you use banks, and there's a lot of problems with this. How do we get banking? How do we pay our bills if we're using federally, we're dealing drugs according to the feds?
Yeah, and also
a complicated mix.
Yeah, and one of my clients, and I'm going to say who it is because it's been on national news, Walgreens actually challenged the federal government and the way that they collect taxes because they were being penalized really $30,000 a year by paying their taxes in cash.
That was a wonderful case, by the way, Mr. Hoffman.
Yes, and so they went to court and they won that particular argument and said, listen, we don't have a bank. We can't pay you with a check. And trying to pay, tens of thousands of dollars of tax liability with money orders is ludicrous.
Yeah, listen up, America. Say that again. This is where the marijuana went against the man. The federal government, the IRS, the biggest dog in the house. The death and taxes are always there, but it took a person, a business, an attorney, and a plan to challenge that ignorance and the light shine the truth. And they actually won that case.
Yeah, they won the case because they said, listen, last time I checked, real dollar bills were legal tender in the United States. And you're telling me that we are being penalized for up to $30,000 every year
legal tender.
For using legal tender to pay our obligation to you. I mean, that just saying it makes it crazy.
Yeah, but that is what happened. That was the way. And because people like you listeners out there stood up, stepped up, and built your businesses, that's what's going to end prohibition. People creating jobs, creating businesses, and challenge the federal authority on who's right or wrong. And this is, banking is a huge issue.
Yes. And when we get back from the break, we are going to be talking with a banker, and we're going to be hearing from the horse's mouth, so to speak, what's going on. This is 1580 K High and letstalkpot.com. See you on the other side. Phone lines on program. Thank you.
Nice walkout.
Thank you. What's her? See, I got her number here.
351 9761. You got her. Okay, your mic is on. You got it. Good morning, Rob. This is Casey. You're on the line with Mr. Houghton as well. We got about a 2-minute break here, and then we'll go to You're Here Chicago, chime in and give us a 60-second, and you hear the music, and then Mr. Houghton and I will introduce you.
Yeah, we'll have a little bit of talk now. One of the things that I want to make sure that we're okay with is, can we mention Pike Street National Bank? Okay.
Well, thank you for taking the time, Rob. It means a lot to us, the listeners out there. We're talking about money all day today, and the taxes and banking and how it looks from your side, what your take is on it from your industry.
Robin, actually, you and I worked together a long time ago. Didn't you work for a bank out of California for a while? No. Okay, maybe different. So maybe somebody else, because I used to work for Craddock Development Company, and we did some loans through you guys, but apparently it wasn't you. Yeah, I think somewhere along the line we crossed paths anyway. And I would remind you, no swearing. That's we're good.
Oh darn. Well, thank you, Robin. And it'd be good just to hear from your side what you're seeing. People asking 60 seconds. See what people are saying to you and what you're seeing as a banker, what you see the futures, the exemption options, etc. But thanks for calling. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, and you will be live on air, but we'll. Okay, here we go. I think whispering makes it different.
Hey, Chicago, I like your sound selection today. It's all about taking care of business and money, money, money.
Money, 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 money. This is 1580 KI Radio and letstalkpot.com. We were talking about taxes and the deductibility, and that kind of bled over into banking and the fact that you can't bank.
Now, how do you pay your taxes? I mean, they're paying them in cash. We're trying to pay our bills in cash and money orders. And everyone out there listening that has a business, imagine how challenging that would be if you couldn't swipe a debit card. It changes the game. If you couldn't have a bank account, if you couldn't pay your taxes except in cash.
Yeah, I mean, it leads to the lack of transparency that exactly what the industry is clamoring for. If we're going to be treated as legitimate businesses, we need the transparency that having banking does.
And we're actually lucky to have Miss Robin Roberts of Pikes Peak National Bank on the line. Are you with us, Robin? You know, you've been listening to this for several years. We've seen you out there. You've been a leader, a mover, and a shaker in the movement. What's it like as a banker that can't work with marijuana entrepreneurs? And that's what banks are designed for, right? I imagine you do get a lot of calls, though.
Yeah.
Daily. So you're
Yeah.
actually, listen to this, America. There's a bank here that is people are begging to put their money into. And because the federal government at one level says no, but will take your taxes, of course, and then say, will not deny you access to banking.
Well, and it's kind of a refreshing look at the other side of the issue. You know, I know a lot of people in the industry are, you know, initially painted banks as the bad guys. You know, that they're the ones that are closing down the accounts and it's their fault we can't bank. And they're trying to point the finger at someone. But if you take a step back, and believe me, I'm not one of those people because I understood where the banks were, the unusual position that they were put in. But if you look at from the bank standpoint, like Robin just said, it is a complete new industry. And it's like we're on the other side of the plate glass window going, we'd like to be in there and help, but they won't let us in. And that to people that are, blaming the banks and everything like that, I think that's a refreshing take on the whole thing. Now, can you explain a little bit some of the challenges from the banking standpoint that prevent you from jumping into this industry?
For those listeners out there, yes.
Now, is that just so that the listeners are clear and so that I'm clear? I always learn every time we have someone on who is in the industry but in a different part. My understanding is that the reporting requirement triggers at the $10,000 level. And my understanding also is that it's $10,000 from one depositor in cash at any one time, or a series of transactions over a year from the same depositor that amount to $10,000. Do I have that anywhere near right?
what if we switch? Oh, no, go ahead. And that additional guidance? Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day. So they gave you the if you were option. If you were to do this, and they gave you guidelines therefore, but once again, those guidelines still run into the FinCEN, the FDIC, and the Bank Secrecy Act. So it doesn't seem, it seems like a give, it's a give and a take away.
And I remember that when that memo came out, the thing that was surprising to me was the National Banking Association's president coming out the very next day and said, we don't care what this says. What it's going to take is an act of Congress for us to get involved, because we're not going to take these deposits based on a change in policy. It's going to have to be a change in law. And so I saw that the industry, the banking industry, came back, you know, even though they had those guidelines, and said, no, we're still not going to do it. It's going to take more than that for us to get involved.
Because of your due diligence statements, you have to actually, as that bank, state, yes, this is true. It puts you in, it's a conundrum. And that's a lot of responsibility as a bank president.
Well, and I can't even imagine the manpower that it would take to do that. So there's a point out there, I'm guessing, where the cost benefit analysis kicks in and you go, wait a minute, it's going to cost us more to monitor it than we could ever hope to receive by taking the deposit.
That's right. Well, we're seeing the exact same thing, and that's what made us want to talk about today. There's making the business of marijuana successful has a lot to do with how you treat it as a social justice and as your money and your cents, your dollars, your bills. How can you, they want to tax us. We have to be open. It solves the problem by having it open and regulated and in your bank, Ms. Roberts. It's much easier to track my money when it's in your bank.
Yeah, and I certainly hope so. And also too, and Ms. Roberts, correct me if I'm wrong, but my take on what happened when this whole thing came down was we started having marijuana businesses, and everybody understands that it's illegal at the federal level. One of the things that I think that the federal government used to try and choke off the industry was to choke off the ability to have banking, no credit cards, no writing checks, no clearing funds through the feds, and make it impossible for them to do business. The unintended consequence of the whole thing was nobody realized how resilient this particular industry is and how, I'm not going to quit attitude that the people that are in it have. And so they tried to choke it off by calling the banks and saying, listen, you've got that FDIC insurance. If you'd like to keep it, maybe you ought not be banking with these folks. That led to an all cash business, but the business didn't go away. And so the unintended consequence, I think, was we tried to kill the industry.
They tried to kill the industry.
Yeah, the federal government tried to kill the industry by choking off banking, and the industry didn't die. And now you've got to deal with it. And now you've got the banks so scared that they know that they're not going to do it because they received that stern warning from the federal government. And so now the unintended consequence is the very transparency that we need. The federal government created the problem.
Yes. Yeah, all checks out there. You're right. You mentioned that earlier when we spoke, that all the money in this country runs through about 5 or 6 places. And to tell the people about that a little bit, if you could.
So the bottom line is that if the Federal Reserve, which all financial transactions go through, either intra or interbank transactions, if the Federal Reserve will not clear the funds, won't play in the industry, then everything grinds to a halt. And I can tell you that, I've looked at this banking problem for a long, long time. And, the attorneys that are in the industry, we talk among ourselves. And I kept coming up with solutions to, solving the banking problem. The problem is that every time I came up with a solution and I figured, Charles is now going to have enough money to buy a private jet. And then somebody would poke a hole in my idea and I'd right back and coach with the rest of everybody else on a commercial jetliner. But it always boiled down to either you have to have a bank account or the funds have to clear through the Fed. And if one or the other of those is missing, then the solution doesn't work.
Let me ask a question. One question: what if I have this? What if we have the same accounts and all my clients in the same account, and I swipe it over to them? We have to go to break. I'm sorry, Robin. Yeah. We'll have to have you back on again tomorrow. But this has been amazing.
Thank you again. 1580 K High Radio and letstalkpot.com.
Welcome out, Chicago.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was good.
Okay, now we can call Mr. Bosch.
He's from Cannabusiness.
Yep. Hey, good morning, Randy. This is Casey Stark and my attorney, Mr. Charles T. Howden, here at the Radio Chicago in Colorado Springs. We'll be going on in about 2 minutes. Thank you so much for taking the call. Great show there at the MIS. We have a good article on you in the upcoming THC Consumer magazine. That was a wonderful time, by the way.
Yeah. Hi.
Vegas. Right.
How about Honolulu in February? Honolulu in February. Oh, that's even better. That's even better.
Yes.
Cool. Let me tell you a little bit about what's going to happen. We're going to ask a little bit about who you are and what you do and how you fit into the industry, some of the things that you're going on. So don't be afraid to unabashedly push your product and what it is that you're doing. We'll ask for contact information, and then we're going to kind of get an overview of what it is that you do, how the money comes, where it goes to, how people apply, those kinds of things.
Yeah, if people are listening and want to get in the game.
Okay, and yeah, and again, we thank you very much for being on, and also thank you a lot for, I had a great time at the Investor Summit, made some really good contacts, and so it was time well spent.
Excellent. You know, I actually had 6 of our alumni as speakers there, so it made me very proud to see our students become leaders.
Cool.
Wonderful.
Very cool.
We're going to call in from Chicago, let's say 60 seconds, and then you hear the music, and then we'll introduce you. Thank you, Randy.
And you are now live on the radio. We're not broadcasting right this particular minute.
Back in 10 seconds.
10 seconds. Good morning. This is 1580 K High Radio and letstalkpot.com. I love that music. Thank you, Chicago. This is wonderful.
It's all about marijuana. It's all about money. It's all about taxes and business and banking and funding. If you're out there listening to us today and you are in the game or you want to get into the game, you've heard from the president of the bank and how they see the solution. We've heard of the challenges, and we're actually very fortunate to have another caller on the line, Mr. Randy Shipley from Cannabusiness. Introduce yourself, Randy. Tell the world who we're talking to. Deal syndication, and if you listened earlier today, we had the perspective from a banker who really wants to play the game, who gets calls every day, and from marijuana entrepreneurs that want to have a place to put their money or ask for lending. It sounds like Cannafunder provides a private solution for that. Much easier.
Okay.
Very creative solution.
Now, it sounds to me like, let me clarify a couple of things. First off, in this syndicate, can Cannafunder use the money to fund businesses that are hands-on marijuana, or do they become the funder for the real estate or some ancillary business? Can they go hands-on? So, and what Mr. Shipley just said is huge, because prior to this ruling about the TerraTech fund, if you were hands-on marijuana, it was virtually impossible for you to register with the Security and Exchange Commission, the SEC, because it is a federal entity. So trying to register a security for something who is admittedly a federally illegal source of funds became quite a quandary. And so now things are even moving forward in that regard. So now let's take your business and divide it up into two halves, if you will. One half is the source of the funds, people who want to become investors and get a return on their investment. The other half is giving the funds out to people who need it. So let's say, for instance, I'm in the cannabis business. I'm looking for funding. First of all, how do we get a hold of you? And secondly, what am I going to have to show you in order to be successful in being someone who you would give money to?
Now, this is a very creative solution. We spoke briefly up there at the Marijuana Investor Summit in Denver. Remarkable show, by the way. You know, this is a solution. If you're out there listening to this across America and you haven't heard of this option, we heard the challenges as a banker, and you've heard the challenges for myself as a business entrepreneur. Cannafunder provides a very creative 21st century solution, it sounds like, Randy. Yeah, it makes me, as a person who trains these entrepreneurs across the country, it is so thrilling to see the market develop and create solutions that we, the entrepreneur, needs. We needed funding. We still need banking. And your solution, I was really impressed by it because it does allow individuals to syndicate themselves at a smaller buy-in and help maximize the impact of that buy-in.
Okay, and so the people that are listening right now, I wanted you to hear two things that Mr. Shipley said. First of all, we have been touting from the very beginning of this show that if you find a problem and you can present a solution, you've got a business.
Amen.
Mr. Shipley has found a very elegant solution to a huge problem, and he's made a business out of it. That's the first thing that I want you to hear. The second thing is that the way that Cannafunder works is probably one of the best things that I've seen in this space since it started. And I can tell you that when I went to the Investor Summit up in Denver, I was amazed, not only at the professionalism at the way the show was put on, and Casey and I put on shows on a regular basis, and so we know what that takes. And so my hat goes off to you and your crew for putting on a first-class show. But the other thing that was striking to me was the number of people that were there that were trying to get into this space that had money. And so, we talked just a little bit about, if I need money, how do I get into it? Well, let's say that I am an investor and I have money. How can I be involved in Cannafunder and help out with these projects?
Me too. Excellent.
Oh, I
love it.
We would love that. We really appreciate that.
And that's what this show is all about, connecting people across this nation via radio and megahertz and internet at letstalkpot.com, 1580 AM, America's first all pot radio show. And if you listen to Mr. Shipley and Mr. Houghton throughout the day, and Ms. Roberts that was on from Pikes Peak National Bank, this is the Green Rush 2.0. This is a 21st century solution to problems that have plagued us for 80 years. and is creating thousands, tens of thousands of jobs directly, and you're seeing them actually creating the businesses right below you.
Yeah, and the thing that I also liked about Mr. Shipley and what he said is he said, I'm an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. And he saw an opportunity. He used a skill set. I mean, he admitted, I didn't invent this, but he had a skill set because he understood how it worked, and he applied it to this industry very, very, very successfully. And so again, if you are looking for money, or if you have money, you need to get in touch with Mr. Shipley and go to cannafunder.com. Did I get that right? Okay. Get a hold of him and talk with him, engage in the dialogue, because like I said, if you got money, he can put it to work. If you need money, he can put you in connection with the people who have it, and you can form these alliances that you need in order to grow your businesses.
Speaking of alliances, this 60 minutes has gone by faster than a dollar bill. We're coming up to the close of the hour. We got 30 seconds left here at Let's Talk Pod. Mr. Shipley, stay in touch. This is Casey Stark and Mr. Charles T. Houghton. Walk him out, Mr. Houghton.
We are going to be clear here in just a minute. Call me or reach me at charlesthecannabusinessattorney.com. Reach KC at howtomarijuana.com. Come see us on June 5th in Kansas City. Kansas City, here we come. Lawyers, guns, and money. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Randy.
Mr. Shipley, are you still there?
Hey, thank you, gentlemen. Great show.
Thanks for the music. It was beautiful. Yep.
Boy, those shows go by so much faster. They know their shit. They know their shit.
What's that? Who's that?
Cannabusiness Roberts, they know their shit. They know the top. They got it now.
It's great. Couple people, thank you.
We got Center lined up for 9:20 tomorrow.
Okay.
So we'll talk about.
He's the Missouri dude.
No, Jonathan Center, representing Colorado, Jacksonville, the caregiver law.
Okay, that dude.
All of them, banking law. He's talking about banking too. I think he's got one thing proposed as well. So, just amazing. That was a good show.
That was a good show. We did good.
Makes it much fun.
Yes.
So real.
I'm trying to take my pictures of Sophie, and I can't quite get it done. Can you take a picture of
Your phone?
Yeah. Because I want to post some of this stuff with both of us on there too. Here. Patrick, it is. I hope you do.
I'm just worried about money. I'm just
Same
so
sense.
close to it. It's just
If I'm going to do it for my friend, it's not a different lawyer.
just because it's really concerns me. I want to get someone.
Okay.
Oh, that's gonna be a good one.
Is it going to be a good one?
Yeah, there we go.
Act like I'm talking.
You want here?
Yeah.
That's nice. That's nice.
Okay, let's get a double. You and me together. For the can, I think. Wait a minute. Oh, no wonder it's not working. Duh.
Okay, final legislative report, Cannabis Council, Cliff Loves, UCC, Malcolm Food. Okay.
I think the checklist I stole is from Cannabusiness.
Yeah, that's the pitch. Yeah, the pitch is a magazine like the Indie, but much bigger in Kansas City. Much bigger.
Oh, really?
Much bigger.
They call it the
The
pitch.
pitch. It's one that has everything on it, but they have different advertising options. The Uptown Theater put me in touch with them. That's where they advertise all their stuff. But they have a 21,000 newsletter reader list for $500. It goes out to 21,000 people that have subscribed to their Wednesday weekly update on what's happening in Kansas City.
How long does that get? Just one
Well,
week?
it's one blast of 21,000 people. That's probably more. Yeah. So I got about 12 seats sold. Advertising the billboard went up on Friday night, but I expected a little bit more traffic. You have to kind of get used to it being there. But at 350,000 people driving by a week, I expected some more calls. So I'm hoping that it's just a matter of gravitas and building up to it. It's still 3 weeks away. I'll worry about it later. I'll check it out later. So we do have 2 or 3 calls that I'm trying to close in Kansas City from it already.
And I got to rewrite the book, so you and I need to get together.
Yeah, I'd love to. I think if we do, I do an infographic style. I create one big infographic about it, and then walk it through like it's a big picture. Then you end, you have a big poster of what you just talked about him, a big poster about the marijuana, because it'd be more general. And
So like I've done nothing, maybe just putting the Prezi in the book.
big Prezi.
I know. Great, I thought.
We had 2 really cool call-ins.
Good. Really good.
President